Dr. Muzammil, a Kashmiri doctor and faculty member at Al-Falah University, played a central role in the newly exposed white-collar terror module, which is linked to the November 10th Red Fort car blast in New Delhi. CNN News 18 has now learned that Dr. Muzammil and his associates, among them Dr. Umar and Dr. Muzaffar, stockpiled large quantities of explosives and weapons in rented premises in Haryana, using their medical schedules as a cover for all of these activities. Foreign handlers identified only as Mansoor, Hashim and Ukasha allegedly guided him and his network on the logistics, the procurement processes and concealment of explosive materials. Sources have told CNN News 18 this is the latest that we are getting right now. They had help from foreign handlers who have been as of now identified as Mansoor, Hashim and Ukasha, who have allegedly been guiding them, on the logistics and procurement processes as well as concealment of explosive materials as well. So this is what we are learning right now. They've been using their medical schedules as a cover for all of these activities that were going on. For more on this, we have with us Anand Narasimhan. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, every time we talk about Al-Falah University, the more details, the more the layers are peeled back, it's only spelling more and more trouble. It just goes to show the rot that had been festering for so long and how deeply entrenched this entire module was. And perhaps we still don't have an idea of how far the expanse of this web had spread.
Good afternoon, Haim, and to our viewers. Yes, and this is indeed concerning because what it's showing is a new kind of radicalization and a module that is emerging, a pattern that is emerging, that he was using these doctors were actually using medical schedules as a cover, and they were trying to amass a huge quantity of explosives which they were trying to hide at various hubs in remote locations in rural areas in parts of Haryana. In fact, foreign handlers, like you were mentioning, like Mansoor, Hashim and this Dr. Ukasa actually guided them on procurement, concealment and movement of the material. So that is the level of instructions that were being passed on how to handle certain material, because they had certain accelerants added to it like TATP. So that means TATP itself is a highly unstable compound, and when it is added to say something like an ammonium nitrate, it becomes quite explosive and self-explosive. It can detonate on its own. So they had to move it at in very controlled environments, and they were getting instruction on how to do it, and even on storage. And also top sources telling Manoj Kumar Gupta that the investigation into Muzammil Shakil reveals this new template where educated, socially credible professionals were being transformed into ideological assets by foreign handlers. Now this is dangerous because these kind of individuals can hide in plain sight. They can go about their showcase themselves as going about their routine work, but they can plan, execute in highly diabolical manner and over a period of time. And they themselves are financially able to try and even fund some of these efforts on their own, and they can hide in plain sight. Now, Dr. Muzammil began this entire module on his own. That's what we are given to understand. And after sensing from Dr. Umar that his decisions were, operational decisions were a little reckless, Muzammil started trying to plot things or do things on his own and trying to keep things from Umar in distance, saying that Umar could be a high-risk entity who could expose this entire module. Also, he disagreed with Umar's push for a faster execution. Dr. Muzammil was somebody who wanted to bide his time, take his effort, plan it to the T and execute it to perfection, rather than someone like Umar, who was perhaps in a little bit of a haste and trigger happy, if one may say. Muzammil also insisted that any strike must be planned only after establishing a secure long-term network. So Muzammil was in for the long game. He was not there for short-term gains and short-term immediate impact. He wanted to create a particular network that was so vast and so ensconced that it could not be uprooted, and when they would strike with precision at multiple points, leaving perhaps the agencies and also people at large, civilians, clueless about what was hitting them and what was happening. And according to Muzammil, he believed that they carried legitimacy, mobility and ability to hide quietly inside institutions without arousing or attracting suspicion. And these are all these people like Dr. Ukasa, Hashim, Kamran, they are all intellectual recruits and they all believed and they had impressed upon Muzammil that intellectual recruits are the future of jihad. So you see how the entire terror mechanism itself and the terror machinery itself is evolving with the changing times. And they were using telegram channels such as the Farzadani Darul Uloom Deoband and the Kafila-e-Gurba. And these telegram channels had become his ideological lifeline. Through these telegram channels, he was made to believe that a network of doctors, engineers and postgraduate students can create a long-term undetectable support system for jihad operations. So you would have white-collared OGWs, facilitators who would hide in plain sight and help execute diabolical terror attacks across Bharat. That's what they were trying to create as a network. He also used his seniority to influence interns, NEET aspirants and junior doctors. His legitimacy as a doctor made his words authoritative, trustworthy, and this made him, gave him the freedom to say anything radical that was accepted. And he could say that because largely the students were Muslim and he could go ahead and influence them, and because he was coming from an intellectual position, a position of authority, position of highly being educated and qualified and as a faculty, and he was saying this to these students, they could come under the impression and he could try and increase this network. So we see how Muzammil was operating, very calculated, very in the know and understanding of what he was doing, and very, very rational in his radical approach.
Absolutely. The more we learn about this, the more we learn about the true nature and sophistication of this entire web and nexus that had been planned. However, clearly not sophisticated enough to have eluded the Indian agencies. Yet there's a lot that remains to be uncovered and a lot to be learnt about how India can further evolve its counter-terrorism measures going forward as well. Thank you so much for that, Anand.